Watching stars on the silver screen. Nerdles gather, it's a movie scene. Seek out Spock, is he lost in space? Will Khan appear with his famous face? Popcorn ready, spaceship in flight. On this journey we sail through the night. Warp speed ahead on a Star Trek quest. Who's the best? Trekker, take a guess. Popcorn ready, spaceship in flight. On this journey we sail through the night. Warp speed ahead on a Star Trek quest. Who's the best? Trekker, take a guess. Will we find Spock in the deep black void? Will Khan's revenge be fully employed? Engage engines, let the story unfold. To boldly go where tales are told.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Nerd Holes. So, over on Will's channel, the Daystrom Holodeck, we do the retrack review. Every week we do Star Trek because I have not seen a lot of Star Trek and we're going through and watching it chronologically. And Will is the Star Trek fan. I am becoming a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
So, we've covered all of the original series and the animated series over there. So now over on this channel, we're going to be doing the motion pictures because the Nerd Holes is a little bit more of like a movie review podcast. So today we are covering the first Star Trek movie, the 1979 movie Star Trek, the motion picture. We watched on Paramount, it's like the updated director's cut.
Yeah, I think director's edition or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
also,
usually,
I haven't seen a director's edition, so because it just came out like
Oh.
this year or last year.
So it's new.
It's new, yeah.
Well, that's cool. It's always funny because so for me, for the first time watching this, I was like, man, they like really upped the budget. But a lot of that is probably just like they just did that stuff.
Some of it is, and some of it isn't. You'll
Yeah.
be surprised.
Cool. Because that was like the first thing I noticed. I was like, man, so this is what Star Trek is like in modern times when CGI is
Yeah.
a thing. Yeah, so usually I'm the newbie. I mean, I'm still the newbie in this episode, but usually I'm the one that answers questions. So, Will, as the Star Trek fan,
hmm
how do you rate this movie?
Well, I think it's safe to speak for all Star Trek people that this is typically the least liked film of the franchise. And there's a lot of them they don't like, but this one kind of always takes the cake. I personally don't hate it. We won't get too much into it because I know if I say it, we're gonna go down that rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
pretty much right when Kirk is like, "No, I'm leaving the bridge," and he's clearing the bridge, the movie is pretty streamlined. It's a pretty straightforward Star Trek like episode, and it's a lot like all of the other material. But like prior to that, it has pockets of like good.
That's interesting that you say that because I was wondering kind of like where this movie stood. Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But it like immediately doesn't feel like Star Trek.
Yes.
It does not feel like the original series.
Right.
It just feels like which obviously it's kind of like, it's funny even saying it, but it feels like a Star Trek episode, but just really long. But it's like, obviously, what else would it be? It's a Star Trek movie. There's just a lot of shots that are just like, okay, yes, I get, okay,
yes. And then
let's circle around the Enterprise one more time. Jeez, like I got it.
But you
refitted I got it.
Yeah. So the way to help with that, it doesn't alleviate it because they are incredibly long scenes, like incredibly long scenes, minutes of nothing, really. But what helps alleviate it is the fact of look at it from a 70s point of view. So
Yeah.
you have Star Trek, the original series happens. Gene Roddenberry barely gets that on the air because the pilot was canceled with Jeffrey Hunter.
Yeah.
Barely gets the Shatner one on, and they're in constant threat of being canceled constantly. So they fight through the three seasons. They get canceled because NBC, it's not pulling in money. They go off the air. It goes into syndication. People are like, whoa, Star Trek's awesome. Why is there not more Star Trek? They make a deal with Filmation. They
Yeah.
make an animated series that doesn't do well because it's a Saturday morning cartoon and, it's not for children really.
Mm.
And so it's like, okay, so now there's nothing. They cancel that because that's not giving, and people are upset. They have conventions. That's when we start to get like Comic-Con type things.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's a lot of money here. Like we can sell toys and stuff and people will buy them. Like Star Trek is pretty popular. And they're like, yeah, but it's not that popular. Look how it does on TV. Star Wars comes out. Star Wars is
Mm.
huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroys the box office. The case in point comes out in 77. My parents go and see it in theaters in 78 for the first time
Yeah.
because it was in theaters forever.
Wow. Yeah.
So um that happens, and Paramount, who owns it, is basically like, well, we have, now the studios want to fight against 20th Century Fox. What do we have that could combat, Star Wars? Well, we have Star
Mm.
Trek, that old terrible canceled show, and they're like, oh yeah. So they reach out to Roddenberry, and he's like, absolutely, yes. You want my ideas on the big
Yeah.
screen? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely, and I think you can appreciate this, it's Roddenberry's, because this is the only movie that's like this. The other ones have glory shots, everything has glory shots, but
Mm.
this is the movie, and once you think about it, it's Roddenberry's way of saying to the fans, we made it.
Yeah. Right.
And he lets stuff sink in, and they take all these long shots and they let you feel it because, like, hey man, we're in the movies. Like, this is a movie.
We
This
can
was
take time to
canceled.
have cinematic
Right.
shots because we're not,
Right.
a
Because
30-minute time slot.
at the time, no, a majority of people didn't view the cartoon as like anything. So Star Trek
Yeah.
had been off the air for like 10 years.
Yeah.
It's like, it'd be basically like now if we got a Firefly show again, it would be like, whoa. It's like, it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really justify how long the scenes are, but you kind of understand like why he sits with it so much.
Yeah. No,
Also the
that makes it
director.
cooler. And it is cool, like as a fan, seeing like the new Enterprise and you're seeing all like the new stuff.
Right.
It's like that's kind of cool. It's cool to go through and see because it feels long.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing too, because like we just finished TOS and animated series. We're now to go from that to like this,
Right.
like immediately, you're like, man, this is weird.
Yes. I think a lot of people, and this is why people hate it. Yeah, it's long. Yeah, there's boring parts in it. Yeah, it's like kind of strange, but the thing that people don't like, and I understand it, like, okay, I'm ready to watch Star Trek, and it's like the uniforms are different, the ship is
Mhm.
different, the music is different, the technology is different. Like
Yeah,
literally everything that you like about Star Trek, other than the
it's
actors,
different.
is different.
And that's the other thing that I will speak to is it's like having Indiana Jones come back and being like 95 and hating everything and being this old
Right.
like curmudgeon.
Right. Right.
You love Kirk and you love Spock and you love the whole cast. And
Right.
now here they are 10 years later, and it's like, oh, you don't even know how the ship operates, old man. Like and
Right.
it's like, I don't want to see Kirk as like the guy that's learning
Right.
the ship again. I don't want to see him like
Right.
not making good calls because he's, kind of been out of the game. I don't want that.
Right. Right. Which nobody did. Right. Right. Yeah.
So that hurts. That kind of hurts
It does. It
I
does.
mean, they pull it together in the end. I will say that they kind of pull it back together at the end.
They
But
do.
but I get the time period where it's like, okay, so Kirk's an admiral. He has not been like on a Starfleet because why would he? Why would he
Right.
be a captain? But it also is just kind of this crummy thing too, where it's like he comes on board and he's like, "Hey, so you're not the captain anymore." It's
Right,
like,
right.
oh, this is a lot of stuff is happening right off the bat where you're like, this is
Yeah.
kind of crappy.
I think a lot of the other stuff too is they do a lot of like weird cuts to stuff just
Yeah.
to do it.
Hmm.
They introduce an idea and you're like, oh, and then they cut to something else and they do something brief and you're like, okay, and then they cut to something else and you're just like, oh, okay.
I also feel like some of the dialogue is funny. It kind of feels forced. Like,
A little
hey, so
bit.
remember these characters that you used to play? And I sometimes
Yeah.
like specifically with Kirk, he says bones
Uh-huh.
so much too that it's almost, and it doesn't feel like in the original series when he's that's just legitimately what he calls him. This kind of feels like he calls him that because he used to call him that in the original
Yeah.
series. I don't know why it feels that way, but it just kind of feels forced, you know?
I think that what they are intended for it to be is Kirk he hasn't seen him. So
Yeah.
they're not like chummy friends on the ship anymore because like McCoy left, he
Yeah.
left. So now it's like, hey friend, remember me, friend? I'm your friend kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, and I guess Chapel's Vulcan internship didn't go too well, huh?
Nope. Now she's
But
chief
how
officer of the
yeah.
Enterprise.
But how funny too is it for like the original crew? So you got like Scotty and Chekhov and Uhura and Sulu. And they're all under this new captain, and all of a sudden Kirk comes back on. He's like, I'm in charge. And like they've all
Yeah.
been with the ship since, he got promoted, and it's like they know the ship. And now
Yeah.
Kirk is back, and they're like, oh, if anybody could get us through this safe, it's gonna be Kirk. And it's like, would you really believe that? Like I get that you love the guy, but he hasn't been a captain of a Starfleet ship in like 4
Right.
years. Like, oh, our chances are doubled now. Like, no, they're not. No, they're not.
It's an interesting thing. It was a thing. That's why I put on my channel a poll to even be like, should he even watch this? And people were like, overwhelmingly, people were like, yeah, like, yes, he should watch this. Like,
Because even
okay.
if you don't like it, it still fills in that time gap.
Yeah.
There's lots of stuff in this movie that I like, but I fit in right with all the other fans. I really do not like these uniforms.
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody likes them. I mean,
They're
people like
too
them, but they like them for the wrong reasons, I think.
what's the term? They're too non-sci-fi.
Yes.
So they're very much like Navy
Yes.
or Air Force. I can't remember the thing
Yeah.
on the shoulder
Yeah.
is very much like ship captain commander of
Yes.
like ocean, like cruise ship guys have
Yeah.
the
Yep.
the thing, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, that is where they come from, but it's
Right.
funny
They are.
because like I love the Enterprise uniforms because they're just boiler suits, and it's like they're on a submarine in space.
Right.
But we're hundreds of years past that now.
Yes.
So like, for me seeing like the bright colored shirts and stuff like in the future, like, okay, well that, at least that's science fiction. It's not an earthly
Right.
thing.
Right.
And
Right.
now it's
Right.
like everything in this movie too, it just feels like monotone, and like the color schemes are like gray and tan and
Yep.
beige, and it's just bleh. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what
Yeah.
I
No,
mean?
I totally know what you mean.
There's a couple bright switches,
Yeah.
but gumdrop switches are gone. Everything
Gone.
is LCD screens, it's
Yeah.
all supposed to be like electronic screen.
Yeah.
And like that stuff is cool,
Right.
but it's just, I don't know.
All different. It's all different.
It's not starting. The bridge is different. You mess with the bridge, man. You
Yep.
don't mess with the
Bridge is
bridge.
gone. Yeah. It's just like literally everything is different.
The ship from the outside looks great.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
retrofit, all that stuff, the new end cell angle and everything is cool. But the inside is just boring. And it's funny to say that it's boring because it's like more technology,
Yes, I know what you mean
but
now.
it's
Yes.
just boring. Why do you think Roddenberry changed it so drastically? Because even Star Wars wasn't didn't feel like that. It
No,
bright colors, and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't just kind of earth tones. I don't know.
right.
I think the only uniform that I did like was Spock's towards the end. He kind of had a more
Oh, yes.
like original blue, but it had like a collar, like a higher collar
Yeah, yeah,
underneath.
yeah,
And that was totally fine. And it's funny seeing, if I remember, isn't Chapel's kind of wearing that white uniform,
yeah.
isn't she? Which is kind of like what Strange New Worlds took her uniform from, which I thought was cool.
I also forgot the other thing that happened too in the 77s is they literally got very close to producing another show called Star Trek Phase 2.
Oh, wow.
And it was a television series and it was announced, but they canceled it before. I think they filmed some stuff and then they canceled it before it even. It was like
Hmm,
they were going to make a 2 hour television movie and then they were like, nope.
that sucks.
I forgot that that happened too. So
Hmm.
like Roddenberry kept throwing things at them, but
Just a product of its time because, like you said, you have all these people that loved it, but they're like, well, the
right.
the TV box doesn't show those results. And it's like, well, yeah, because I don't even know if this was like before the Nielsen thing,
I think around Nielsen came out, yeah.
but even that is such an
Yeah.
obscure numerical system because it's like, okay, so these 10 houses have one and they're not watching it. It's like, okay, but the other
Yeah.
45 houses on the block are. So it's like, how do you pull numbers from that stuff? So you have all these cons
Yeah.
and stuff, and people are going there, and there's just, thousands of people waiting to get, autographs and pictures with these guys. And they're like, oh, we didn't think anybody was even watching the show.
Yeah.
And you tell like the people at like Paramount, and they're like, nah, nobody watches the show. And it's like, well, yeah, there's people watching the show. It's cool that Paramount has owned this for such a long time too. Usually stuff changes hands all the time.
All the time, right? Yeah. So this is what you won't like it, but this is what they say according to a book called Star Trek Phase 2, The Lost Series, and I think the making of the motion picture.
Mm,
It says the original plans for the aborted Star Trek Phase 2 television series involved retaining TOS uniforms, but when the project became Star Trek the Motion Picture, they were replaced with a new design by Robert Fletcher because, according to Susan Sakel, whatever, and Gene Roddenberry in the making of the Star Trek the Motion Picture, the bright colors of the 1960s original, so vibrant on television, would distract viewer attention on the big screen.
no,
Right.
not at all. Oh, because this.
It
Oh,
says
I've
the
never
new
noticed how
officers.
bright these colors were until I saw it on a 40-foot by 40-foot screen.
Oh, God. The new officers' uniform designs proved unpopular with the regular cast, and when Harve Bennett took over as producer of the second motion picture, he ordered another redesign because he did not want an all gray crew on an all gray ship.
Yeah, no kidding. It's so boring.
So, as
And that
usual,
stuff and that stuff sucks because now like chronologically it's like, okay, so they had these uniforms
yeah,
and
right.
then they had these uniforms and then Starfleet did a total overhaul
Then
3 months later, changed these uniforms again.
that's the one thing that like people don't like, but at the same time, it's hard to complain. Is like pretty much every single
Oh,
thing
it's always,
they change the uniforms.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing you're gonna change, right? The Christopher Pine movies come out and they're like, hey,
Yeah,
so like we want them to be the original colors, but like we need to spruce them up because we don't want them to just be like a flannel shirt with like a a
like a
badge sewed
stitched in.
onto it. So they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
same
then even
Strange
Strange
New
New Worlds
Worlds,
the
right?
same, and they
Yeah,
have the deltas all down the sleeve, and it's like,
yeah.
okay, Starfleet, man, it's funny, their society doesn't run on money, but
They're obsessed with
they spend
fashion.
a lot on fashion for Starfleet animals.
I mean, think about it. Even their Drake, new uniforms.
Yeah, all the time. All the time.
So we already kind of talked about the thing with the starry intro. That was pretty interesting, where it's just
Yeah.
music and like a star field.
Oh my God. I skipped it.
Nothing
It
happens.
was so long.
It really was.
I was expecting a voiceover or something, and I was
Oh,
like, okay. I watched maybe like 5, 10 seconds of it.
yeah.
And then I was like, okay. So then I skipped like 10 seconds, nothing. Skipped 10 seconds, nothing. I was just like, oh my God. No ship flying overhead,
No, nothing. Nothing
No,
at all.
Captain Kirk has been
Yeah.
admiral for 14 day cycles, and
Yeah. Nothing. Just
a
nothing at
new
all.
weapon approaches Earth. Nothing. It was just stars. I was like, oh my
Just
God.
stars. And then we get that really, really recognizable music that you've known from the original series.
No, no, I didn't hear
Da,
it.
da, 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 da.
It's not bad. I don't think it's
No, it's not
terrible.
bad. It's not bad. It's just really funny how it's not anything like the show.
Space, the
Um,
last frontier.
I did think though that you were going to enjoy the Klingon ship models because it was very Star
Yeah.
Wars-esque with the close-ups of the models and like they were kind of going slowly.
That's the first thing I remember was like, oh wow, they're using like actual miniatures now. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were super good. And and Klingons look like Klingons now all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, they're getting there at
Stop, stop.
least.
I was just like,
They
wow. Wow, these are look more like Klingons
were
now.
like, whoa, this is an
Oh,
actual.
we spared no expense.
So the Klingon captain
Yeah.
is Mark Leonard, who
Hmm.
plays Spock's dad and the Romulan. So
That's funny.
it's pretty
That's
good.
cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
Back, tap, tap.
But the other thing is too, I know we got it in Enterprise, but like since TOS, like you're getting the Klingon look, but you're also getting like they're speaking Klingonese as he says
Yeah,
in
right.
TOS. So pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. That was cool. And that was a good way to set up like, oh man, this thing is even too much for the Klingons.
Way too much. Yeah.
Not good. If only there was a retired captain
Hmm.
who had no idea how this new Enterprise functioned.
How do I get the ship to go? I thought the Klingon ship being destroyed by the cloud essentially at the time
Yeah.
was pretty cool with like the lightning thing and it was just like
Yeah,
like
lightning was cool.
disappearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they would disappear. They would basically they were basically getting assimilated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time. And then that's kind of where my brain was going, was I was like, wow, does
Oh,
this
okay.
movie start with the Borg? But it does not start with the Borg.
Nope. Then we get Spock with long hair.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
He was doing his ritual.
Kolana.
She was gonna put the necklace on him, and he was like, no, there's other things I must do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
He could
great
feel it. He
seeing.
could sense the
Yeah.
computer is somewhere talking to me.
Yeah.
Now
Unlimited knowledge.
I don't know if the giant molten Vulcan statues were add-ons or not. I can't remember.
Mm. They were kind of cool though.
They were cool.
I wonder
And
what
then we
his
get
stupid ex-wife is doing down there.
hanging out with Stan.
Losers.
I thought you also would appreciate because, like, again, outside of Enterprise, like you officially get to see Starfleet headquarters in
Yeah,
San Francisco and everything.
in San Francisco.
But this was the
Yeah,
scene.
it's pretty great.
This is the scene I was talking about. So, okay, it's like the Klingons, whatever, vaporize.
Hmm.
You're like, okay, that's terrifying. It
Yeah,
cuts to Spock on
yeah.
Vulcan. He's
What's
doing some
Spock
sort
doing?
of ritual, and it's like, okay, no, he can't. And then it cuts to Kirk, and he comes in on the thing, and you're like, oh wow, okay, great. He talks to the other Vulcan there, Somek or something like that,
Yeah.
and or Sonak, I think. And
Yeah.
it's like, and then it just cuts to he's like in a different. They're going back to the ship, like they're now going to the Enterprise.
He's like, hey, I'm gonna go talk to command, like
Right,
Starfleet command. And then he comes out and he's like, I'll be the captain now. Let's go to the Enterprise.
right,
And they like, and Scotty like flies them up in the shuttle.
yeah. I like all the set pieces. I like that they're all different things, but it just felt
It's just a
like
whiplash
yeah,
of a lot of stuff going on, you know. I mean, it sets up the threat of the movie. It shows that Spock is nowhere, isn't even at Starfleet anymore.
right,
So, like, later on, when you get to see the crew assemble, like, you know, Spock's not there.
right.
But also, it's Star Trek, the motion picture. You're not gonna not have Leonard Nimoy be
No.
the science officer. I mean, it just would be, that'd be even stupider than changing the uniforms.
Yeah, could you imagine if they just were like, nah, but not everybody came back.
Yeah, we brought Chekhov back, though. You remember he wasn't in the animated series?
He's back.
We brought him back. He burns his hand at one point. It's pretty cool. Isn't that better than Spock? No. Yeah, so this is the shot where they go in the shuttle up to the Enterprise, and it's like super, super drawn out, you know.
I think it's literally like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a full 5 minutes. It is cool when they fly by though, like part of like the front uh, reflector dish on the bottom. And
Yeah.
you can see like the sideways delta,
Yes.
like pinstripe, and it's really cool, you know.
Yeah.
I liked how the shuttle docked too. I thought that was kind of cool.
I like
Kind
turns.
of like backs in and backs into like that little circular like dock. There's also a lot of scenes in this movie of just some random person in a spacesuit
Oh yeah.
out doing
I-
stuff.
Just having the best time of his life.
It's like what's going on?
Yeah. There's a couple. We'll get to them. But I like the worker bee pod, the little like the little
Mm.
ships moving or flying around, like
Yeah, it
taking
was
things
cool.
between. Those are cool.
Yeah,
So
pretty cool.
that was the question I wanted to ask you was, how do you feel about seeing Scotty be different? I know Spock is different with the long hair, but that's resolved pretty quickly in the film. So what do you think about Scotty's new look?
It's weird. Yeah, it's weird. Somehow he looks like way older than everybody else.
Yes, he does.
And that mustache totally changes like his whole facial structure. And he
Yes.
looks completely different. I still love Scotty, but yeah,
Oh
it's just funny. He just like immediately looks like an old engineer now.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
This becomes his new look. So
Yeah. No, that's fine.
I thought the transporter tube effect was kind of cool.
Mm.
It's
So it
interesting.
seems like it's actual like the top and bottom of the transporter like
Yes.
connect now with
Yeah.
light,
Yeah.
which is makes more sense. I like that scene too where he's like, I think I'll manage my way around the ship.
Oh,
And then like 5 minutes later, he's like, hey, so which way is it to the
yeah. I think I can figure
Oh,
it out.
I can figure out I know this ship. It's like, oh, so you changed the hallway to the mess hall. That's
Interesting.
weird choice.
So we get to the bridge. So Kirk is on the ship. We get to the bridge and they're like working on things or doing something on the bridge. And there's a shot of this guy standing on like a hover pad disc and he's like working up on the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, it's so interesting to me the stuff that they decide to do with like the props and tech stuff with Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because like later in there, they use like the wrist things to talk instead
Yeah,
of
I
like
know.
the flip stuff.
It'll be another 60 years before you see like badge
Oh no, I
comms. Yeah.
can't have that.
Uh-uh.
I also thought you would enjoy having that
Hey,
gold bald man be on the
yeah,
bridge.
what was up with that guy? I mean, you see him and he
I,
shows up one time again at the very end of the movie.
yeah,
Big forehead, yellow-eyed.
I don't know.
I don't even remember what he said in the beginning. He says something weird.
He does say something like, "Oh, that's not going to go well," or something. I don't know what he
It's
says.
like, all right, go stay in like he engine room or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I was thinking, well, hey, he's getting a new alien on the bridge beside Spock and Eric's in the animated series.
Yeah, right. No. The aliens in this movie are abysmal.
I don't think I mean that.
Yeah.
I forgot that the new warp core design is kind of emerging between two. So you
Mhm.
have the like horizontal core going this way, like it is in Enterprise in the original series, where it's more like a horizontal engine.
Yeah.
And then now it goes vertically. So
Yeah.
it's both of them together, where going forward, it just becomes a vertical shaft.
Yeah. The only time you really see it is, when they're down there working on it, you can see like the blue light
Right.
inside the tube, kind of all like wavy. I think that was more of like the intermix chamber
Some of it, yeah.
specifically.
Some of it, yeah. And then the thing that made me laugh was that Kirk is now the jerk admiral. Like he is like in the show when this admiral or bureaucrat would come on and he'd be like, "You
Yeah.
need to go to Starbase, whatever." And Kirk hated it. I was like,
I'm
"Hey,
the captain of the ship. Yeah. He's become everything he hated. I like too that the captain, I forgot his name.
Decker."
Decker, that's it. He's like, oh, we didn't really need an admiral like send off, like we were good. And he's
Yeah,
like, oh, no, I'll talk to you in my room privately.
yeah, it's all right. It's fine.
But he's already told everybody on the way up. He's already told everybody on the way up to the bridge, like, yeah, Starfleet said I'm taking over this mission. It's like probably talk to Decker first before you start telling everybody.
Nah. So there is no on-screen like evidence that indicates that they are related.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of people like to speculate that Will Decker is Matt Decker's son, which is the guy, the captain who flies into the Doomsday Machine.
Oh. I was gonna say I remember hearing Decker before.
Yeah. So everybody assumes it's his dad, but obviously
That's cool.
they don't speak to that, which it
Well, they both go out in a blaze of glory.
they certainly do. Did you catch in the transporter room who was there to help bring people aboard?
Yeah.
So it was the lady, the
Lady.
like middle-aged lady with her blonde hair. That
Hmm.
was Yeoman Rand.
Oh.
So that actress came back to play her role.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. And then that great horrific transporter accident with Commander Summer.
Ah, yeah, it was such like a blink and you miss it thing
Yeah.
too. They're like, oh, well, Captain, the transporters haven't really been working too well. And he's like, well, I don't know. I would just try it. And they try to beam him up, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then he's like,
Yeah.
do you guys have him down there? And they're like, whatever came back didn't last long. It's like, dude.
Fortunately.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's
That's
the thing
great.
is it's like you said, if it's a blink and you miss it. So the Vulcan that Kirk talks to in
Yeah.
Starfleet
And
Command,
yeah, for
he's
like
the
3
one
seconds. Yeah, he's dead.
he's gone.
He's like, all right, well, get me another Vulcan up here. They're
Immediately.
like, there are none. Yeah. Well, then I'll have to have Decker also be science guy.
I
I
guess
don't
I'll
really
hope.
care.
I guess this is fine.
It just makes Kirk look like such an awful like
Yeah.
tyrant in the beginning of this. Like he kills this guy. This guy's dead, and he's like, all right,
Yep.
well, just send up another Vulcan. It's like, dude, that guy is dead. What is this? Why? What's the need for this?
It is actually pretty funny because it's like,
It's like ridiculous.
yeah, I think it's like they're trying to convey that he's supposed to be like super freaked out and that this thing is like destroying everything and getting closer to Earth and like gonna
Yeah.
kill everything on Earth. But it just, like you said, it comes more across that he's just like flippant about a lot of things.
Yeah, it does. Because there's even that scene too where Bones is like, "Hey, Jim, like you're really pushing.
Right.
Like everybody knows their place, so
Yeah.
keep yours, basically."
We get that debriefing in the rec room, and like
Mm.
in it, there's like a sprinkling of aliens. So there's like an Andorian, and then
Oh.
there's like an alien with like sunglasses or something.
I literally don't even remember seeing
Yeah, yeah.
anybody.
They're just sprinkled in.
Meanwhile,
But
two
like,
years ago in Star Wars, you go into the cantina on Tatooine, and it's just a madhouse of creatures.
just look at all these things. But yeah, perfect example. First guy that I think, because there are guys floating around in those things, but the first one I thought about, and I was just like, imagine being that guy when the giant cloud thing is vaporizing the space station, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, ah, and he's like flying over the thing disintegrating, remember?
Yeah,
And
I
he's just
do.
like, and he's not moving because it's obviously like a big prop. And I was just thinking, imagine being this tiny little astronaut guy trying to get away from this thing, and it's just like, no, there's nowhere
Mm-mm.
for you to go.
No, you're done. Do you see an Enterprise?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So they don't really
Yeah.
get into it, but when Leah comes on, they refer to her being the Delton,
Delta. Yeah.
and
Or
then it's
Delton.
like she makes a comment about celibacy.
Yeah.
And I think it's either in the novelization or when they go on to explain it, but it's like they're basically supposed to be like irresistible. They're like almost like Orion females, but like not with the pheromones. They're just so
Oh,
like the men and women are irresistible that like everybody wants to have sex with them.
nice.
So that's kind of why Kirk is supposed to be um, yeah, and then she's like, no, I'm celibate, and he's like, oh, okay, it's fine, you can come on the bridge.
Well, everybody turns and stares at her too, and then
Right,
she
right,
walks in.
yeah.
But she was in a relationship with Decker
Hmm.
before. So is she?
I don't know. Yeah, not anymore though. She gave it up.
Yeah. Weird.
I thought you would enjoy Bones with his beard and gold medallion.
Yeah. He was like such like a flower child, coming on board. Like
Super 70s.
I pictured him just getting like beamed in from some, Volkswagen mini van with flowers on it. I like
But
that scene though when they go down
it's a
there
great scene. It's a great scene.
and they're like, yeah, so the last guy he was waiting for all of us to beam up first,
Yeah.
see what happened. And yeah, then Bones comes on board. I didn't know he hated being on a starship so much.
He makes like some references in the original series, but yeah, they play it up in this movie.
Just hates it. Like he retired and just was done.
Yeah. But I usually don't pay that much attention to it other than the fact that he's like funny when he comes off the thing. But that scene where he's kind of walking away from Kirk and he's going to leave the transporter room and Kirk is like talking to him. And then he says to him, like, and he puts his hand out and he's like,
I need you, Bones.
I need you.
I need you, Bones.
And then Bones, he kind of slows and his facial expression changes and then he shakes his hand. And it's like he's putting together like how desperate Kirk is, basically.
Yeah.
And I actually like that scene a lot.
Yeah, I do too. Because
Because it's
because at first
yeah,
he's like, you did this. Like
right.
you the only reason I'm here is because yeah,
Right.
you're crazy with power, Kirk. You're crazy with power.
And then he's like, and then you get that impression the first time he says, I need you. And he's like, yeah, I get it, dude. Like, yes, I'm here. And he's like, no, I am at a point where it's like, I can't do this without you. And then you
Yeah.
kind of see Bones make that realization, like,
But
oh,
don't think for a second I'm not going to question every single doctor's advice you give me.
yes.
How funny is it that as soon as Kirk becomes like Admiral, it's like, okay, so Kirk is Admiral, and then Bones is like, all right, well, I'm retiring. And Spock's like, all right, well, I'm going to go back to my home planet.
See you later.
And everybody else is just like, well, I guess I'll just stay on the
Guess
Enterprise.
I'll just stay here.
So funny.
It is funny. I thought of you immediately when Bones leaves the transporter room and he says, engineers love to change things.
Yeah, I love that. That was really funny. And then
It's
later
true.
on, he comes in and he's like, did you find Med Bay accommodating? He's like, nope, can't stand it. I can't stand it. It's all buttons and TV screens. I hate it. No more spray bottles or nothing. How am I supposed
Nothing.
to even?
Another guy in the EVA suit doing a front flip and waving goodbye.
Stupid.
He's like, "See you later." What?
Yeah.
That was funny.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's pretty great. And so this is when they debark from the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He makes the comment that it's like dangerous to warp within the solar system,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
So you have to get out of your own solar system before you can warp.
I guess. I mean, they never really touch upon that. And every time I think about Star Trek in general, they're almost always warping away from the planet. They never really
Everything. Yeah.
show them like leaving the solar system and then warping.
Sometimes they warp away like right from ships being right next to them.
Right, right.
So
The wormhole was kind of cool. I thought that was neat. It was a neat little
yeah.
thing. I'm going to push the button now. Yeah. I didn't say that. I didn't say it made
Fire
sense. I just said I liked the design.
torpedoes.
Oh.
Oh.
Somebody in the FX thing was like, listen, if you sit here and do this thing and just have all this like effect on it, it's gonna look amazing. We can do this cool effect.
Yeah, it's gonna look so cool. Don't worry about how stupid you look right now, because it's literally it's the girl, the nav, she's navigating, and she's
Yeah.
like, she's just sitting there. The asteroid is like 20 feet away. It's like, oh my god.
Oh,
This is gonna look so cool after. It's
I just
so cool.
I just like the design of the thing going like down the thing. Cool.
It was cool seeing the screen, like the lock on screen for the torpedoes.
Yes.
I liked that a lot.
Yes.
Wow, they actually can lock onto stuff now. It's not just like,
Yes.
well, aim the front of the ship that direction and shoot. I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever happens, should be fine.
I like that the captain's chair did
All the things come out. Yeah, that was cool.
he could like lock into the seat. I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was
Never,
cool.
never will happen again.
No, like everybody hates the captain's chair. I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Nobody's ever made one. I'll tell you that.
No. The thing that also was really weird too is so Kirk has Decker and McCoy go to his quarters,
Yeah,
and then it's like this kind of privacy glass, but not really privacy glass. It
yeah.
was so weird. It was such a weird room.
Yeah, it
Come
is
with
a weird
me.
room.
It was like, and then they all go in. It's like, and I was just like,
That's his like personal quarters, so I don't understand why
right.
it was like that.
I don't know. Yeah, but
And
this
he
is
was like, "Why did you disobey my direct orders?" And he's like, "Well, because the phasers run off the engine, and that would have destroyed the ship."
It's like, oh.
Oh. So here's the deal. I'm going to be in charge of the entire operation, but from time to time, I'd like you to tell me if I'm saying something that doesn't make sense with how the ship functions now. But also, if you do it, so help me God.
Yeah, to your point, he literally, when he says it to him, he says the engine thing with the phasers, and then he goes, "Oh, so you were obeying orders."
So you saved the ship. And he's like, "Yes, I know that." And he's like, "You listen here. You listen here. I told you not to do it. I don't know why you did it." Why are you but what was the conversation he had with Bones after?
He basically, Bones just kind of tells him, like, you're asking for too much kind of thing. Like, he's a good guy, and like, you're overstepping, basically. Like, that you're taking this too far.
But it was just so weird that he called Decker and Bones together into the.
Oh, he didn't. Remember, he calls Decker, and then Bones is like,
"Oh, Bones." It's like, "I'll go with you. I'm coming with you." That's right.
Yeah,
Typical Bones.
Another beautiful example of Bones is somewhere he doesn't belong.
Yeah. I'll give him a pass in this movie though, honestly, because he is kind of like the voice of reason actually for once.
I mean, yes.
And that's usually what he's trying to do, but he's always saying just such basic information.
Yes.
To everybody. He acts like everybody is like really stupid.
True.
But yeah.
I thought Spock's ship thing was kind of neat. It reminded me of Obi-Wan's ship in episode
Oh
2
yeah.
when he docks into like the hyperdrive like engines with his Jedi ship,
Yeah.
and then the same when he disconnects from it and he flies away. So when that thing was
Right.
like, and it had the nacelles, and then it's like the top part came off and then went to the ship,
Yeah, it
and I
was
was like,
cool.
that's kind of cool.
I like this part here when Spock like shows up.
Yeah,
He's like, permission to come aboard. Chekhov's like, oh, Spock, I would love to have you aboard. And he just walks right past him. I was like, oh my God. He was so weird and different at first, I thought.
yes,
And I was like, is he going to be like this the whole movie?
no.
No.
One, it's supposed to be because he's purged even more emotion. He was like near
Right.
close to purging all emotion.
Yeah.
So he's
So he has
even
to be around
more
humans for a little bit to get back into the swing of
right.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love him showing up like in his robes and
Yeah.
stuff. I thought that's like super cool.
Yeah.
And Leonard Nimoy, even like the way he talks in these first couple scenes is very like doesn't even really sound like Spock.
Yeah, okay.
He talks like way different.
He does a little bit, yeah.
And then like later on he's like totally back to sounding like Spock again. Like you said, because you feel like he's just kind of empty.
Yes. They said that the ear molds like failed for the film, so he has on like the original TOS ear
Oh,
molds.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't even
It is cool.
realize. So they made like new fancy ones and they didn't work.
Apparently.
So they just put the old ones on. That's funny.
Yeah, pretty wild. So that warp effect happened where they go into the rainbow thing.
Yeah.
And this is the scene that I used the audio for when you were making the joke about having a graphic on our podcast when you're like warp 7, right? And it's like
Yeah.
like I rate this episode of 7, and this was the audio I used where you're like warp
Yeah. Okay.
1, warp 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's pretty funny. It's so funny that they usually go through like all of the impulses until
yeah.
they get to warp. So if the captain's order is like, all right, Sulu, warp 1, he's like, all right. He's like, impulse 3, impulse
Yeah.
4. It's like, oh my God. Just put
uh,
this put the lever in warp, man, dude.
nope.
You
Everything
gotta
is
build up
drawn
to it.
out.
Yeah.
Everything.
Warp 6.
Yeah.
Impulse 7.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Impulse 9. Oh no, Captain, she's starting to shake.
Warp point
Warp
three.
warp 0.01.
Yeah.
Oh, oh my God.
So great line, and I'll see if you liked it too. It's when McCoy and Spock are now in the quarters and they're talking
Mm.
about everything. And
Oh
Kirk
yeah.
keeps saying to him, well, you can sit down, you can take a seat. And Spock
Yeah.
just keeps standing and talking. And
Yeah.
then finally Kirk is like, will you please sit down?
I like that when McCoy first sees Spock, he's like, "Oh man, I'm like so happy to see you here," and he just looks at him and just walks away. But then even in this scene, like he comes in and
Yeah.
McCoy has to rib him and be like, "Well, I see you're even more emotionless than ever before." And he's like, "Yeah, and I see you still use no sense of logic to direct your thoughts." And Kirk's like, "Oh, okay, we got to figure out what's going on
Right,
out
right.
there." Yeah, you're both idiots. Let's let's
Let's
move
get
on.
yeah, let's move
Why
on.
are you here? Why are?
Oh
So
man.
you've been living on Vulcan for the past 4 years. You come out of the Enterprise and you're like, oh, I know why your engines aren't working. It's like, why? Why are you here? What's going on?
The
Whatever this thing is, it's very logical.
very
And I have lots of questions.
it's speaking to me from space. I really enjoy that giant beam of light going through the ship,
Yeah, that was
like
cool.
electrocuting everything, and they're just like,
Yeah, that was crazy.
they're like, don't touch it, don't touch it. Yeah, yes. Well, I wrote it here. Double axe handle to the computer console feels like a callback to Spock crumpling to the display in muck
Yeah.
time.
Except for this time, all it had was just a couple of keys popped off it.
It was like, no, not today.
You're not gonna get this information, see? And you're like, oh, yeah, Spock, these consoles have all been retrofitted with like unobtainium. He like breaks his hand.
Oh, yeah.
Then
That
he
was,
gets shocked.
yeah.
Yeah. This is the best scene and also the cheesiest scene, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah.
The whole like getting
Her
zapped
getting
and like
captured. Yeah.
and then like freezing, like the way that they would like move and be like
They're like,
this
don't worry. This is gonna look
is gonna look great.
amazing.
Hey, you trusted us with that last scene. Wait till you see this one. It's gonna look amazing.
Amazing. I just want all the special effects guys
Yeah.
like over off the side off camera, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be fine," and they're like,
I don't see
"What do you
how.
want it to happen?" And they're like, "Well, it's gonna be a lightning and like lights and all this," and they're just like, okay."
Yeah.
Like, well, we can do it, but I don't think we can make those two things look good together.
No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
So the thing that I think was terrible, the worst uniform, I think, by far, is the
Oh,
terrible security officer.
they're awful.
They're
They're awful.
terrible.
They look like the Romulan
They
guys
do look like the Romulan guys.
with like the big helmet and stuff, and they're just like
It's like 1930s leatherhead NFL helmets. And it's just like, why though?
it's real
Why?
bad. Yeah, they're
It's
real
really
bad.
like I would be okay with the body armor stuff. That's fine. But the
Yeah.
helmet thing is way too much. With a
Well,
with
you
a
don't
dumb
even
little delta on its forehead too. It's like, don't
they're
do
so
this.
stupid. And you don't even see if they like have like phasers on their hip.
No, no.
So that's the thing in this movie. I just realized like we don't see phasers, we don't see
No.
communicators, nothing. The science
Well, you get
tricorder is
the wrist
different.
communicator. You don't
The
get no,
tricorder is different.
the
All that
tricorder is
stuff.
different.
Get out of here. What are you
Yep.
doing, Roddenberry? What are you doing?
It's gone. They're all gone. It's all gone.
Gone. I think the other worst suits is when they meet Vega at the end.
Oh yeah.
The like brown coat.
Yeah, no.
And also they're just in
Satchels.
space. Fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of, I enjoyed the when things like open, that
Mhm.
like layer of the other part like still moving while the other part like entered. It's like a plant kind of design where it's like
Yeah.
this part is moving, but also this part is moving, but it looks seamless. It looks like it's like an optical illusion
Yeah. It
when
was cool.
the first thing opens. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then Vija brings back Ilea
Yeah.
cabin
He
unit.
he is like assimilated thousands of people
Yeah.
on that starbase and everything, but he chose her
Yeah.
because we know her.
Well, yeah.
And she like appears in the shower
Yeah. Yes.
and they're like, hey, there's somebody on board. And they like run down there. Yeah,
I thought
pretty
the
good.
scene in the sick bay where they're scanning her was kind of cool when they're all like
The
explaining how she works and stuff. It was
the
kind of
sick
neat.
bay stuff was cool, like seeing like all of her like internal
Yeah.
like hardware and stuff, and then
Yeah.
even like later on when they scan Spock and you can kind of see like his brain patterns in like three
Yes.
different. I
Yeah.
thought all the sick bay stuff was cool.
It was cool actually. Yeah.
I like
These are
it a
all
lot.
micro machines.
These are all micro. Yeah.
It even gives eye moisture. Then we got that
Yeah, but
fun
it's
Hulk
like,
smash when she comes through the wall.
oh my God. That was so this is the thing about her. She's like, I'm here to record and observe. And they're like, okay. And they're like, yeah, so it's everything we say.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So they're outside of the door and they're like, now what if we could reprogram her? and use it to blow up everything. And she like comes through the door.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, well, I'm ready to look at the rest of the ship now. Like they keep saying things like in earshot of her,
Yeah.
and it's just totally fine, you know.
It's really funny.
Yeah, it was really, really, really funny. They just keep talking by her, and it's like nothing happens.
No, she doesn't care.
No,
Then we have this thing in your back, like your background, where Decker is showing.
that was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool to
No
see that.
NX-01, but that's okay.
Nah, it doesn't exist. It was off to the side.
Yeah, just a little farther over.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you were talking about the mustache man getting neck pinched, right?
Yeah,
It was fine, and I thought he's gonna think this is Kyle,
it is
and
Kyle. It's 100% Kyle.
and I and he does it, and I was like, okay. And then for some reason, Spock also goes to the
Yeah.
floor, and I was like,
Mm.
why?
Because he learned the new technique on Vulcan.
Just keep doing it. Just stay with him.
It makes them sleep for extra long. It's called the Vulcan neck pinch and kiss. It adds an extra 10 minutes of sleep. It's really funny too. Like he walks over there instead of just using like his left hand on his left shoulder, he like
Yeah.
gets behind him and then kind of like turns and then like reaches across to his other shoulder. Like, wow, that's way more complicated. And then he's like, oh. Like, nice.
Yeah.
Well, at least we got a Vulcan neck pinch in this movie. That's
It
great.
definitely wasn't somebody saying like do it for the camera so the camera can see it.
Do it for the lulls.
Yeah. But here's Spock always going off on his own, right? Doing his own thing.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. I that those are cool. The little like thruster seat
Yeah.
pods or whatever they're called. I love that too. Like then when they tell Kirk, like, yeah, that launch bay is open and one of the thruster pods is gone. He's like, Spock.
And then he was like,
get him in here. Actually, you know what? Just let him do whatever he's doing.
yeah. It was like a moment where he's like, that friggin' idiot. And then he was like,
Yeah. You know
he
what?
had like a
It's
flashback
Spock.
of how many times it's worked out in their benefit,
Yeah.
letting Spock go off on his own. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, let's tap into what he's doing.
I bet that moron's gonna try to mind meld. You know what? Let him go. Let him go.
With your energy. Yeah. I immediately thought of you when he's like, if I could only mind meld with it. And he reaches out and he grabs it and he's like, oh, it was so.
I loved it.
Oh, I laughed right out loud. I knew it. I remembered this is what happened, but it was when it happened. I just was like,
It's got more knowledge and memory of the universe than any being in history. And he's like, my brain can hold it.
and then he's just floating.
I don't know how he made it back to the Enterprise. The scene where he's flying through the door opening and he's going through all these like projections and stuff is really cool. You know, you see like on his like helmet, you see all the like the
yeah,
and he's like, I'm seeing all sorts of things. And then the chair like stops.
yeah,
And the whole chair functionality was really cool too. He's like engage, and then he hits like power up, and it's like boop 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 boop, and it launches.
yeah.
And you can see like it like slowly progressing, like running out of juice. But then he finally gets in there and he runs out of juice and he like detaches from it completely. And I was like, aren't you gonna need that to get back? Is that did you use all the juice? I don't understand.
He just interstellars it. He just lets go. It just falls.
He's just using the force.
Yeah. And
pretty cool.
Then when he gets back on the bridge, he gets back on and he's like, V'ger is a child, Captain, blah blah blah. And then he's like, and then McCoy's like, what do you want me to do too? He's like, whatever, yell at it and spank it.
Spank him, yeah.
And Spock just looks at him.
Yeah.
Just goes back to talking to Kirk. Or I think he answers Decker's question, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was really funny.
before that too, we get that scene in Medbay when he wakes
Oh,
up
yeah.
and he's like, you can kind of hear him like crying, and then they run over
Oh,
and
yes,
he's
yes, yes,
like,
yes.
"I knew it,"
I knew it.
and they're like, "What?" And this is kind of when you kind of figure out that like Spock was on a quest for like if you could be like smart and
Yes.
like how he is, but like what else is there?
He basically put together that, like, if you become purely logical, like, this is how you become, and you don't have,
Yeah.
like, the best of both worlds, essentially.
Yeah.
And so then he was
Yeah.
sad because
It's
he
like
had to, like,
incomprehensible. Yeah.
right. And then he was sad because he was basically having to kill, like, the thing that he wants to become.
Yeah. But I think it was also like it told him that like he doesn't want to be just pure logic
Right, right, right.
because he likes deep down, I think he likes being
Yeah.
part of the crew, you know. He
Yeah.
was like my brother. But he like I think this I like that scene when he's in the bed and he passes out and Kirk wakes him up again
Oh,
and
yeah.
he like grabs his arm and then he
Oh,
like
yeah.
goes and grabs his hand and he's like Vader, this is like he will never understand this.
Right.
And it was like, wow, that's cool.
Spock's got some good scenes and
Pretty good.
pretty
Yeah.
much throughout all of his time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so did you like that V'ger ended up being Voyager 6?
I thought that was super cool. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really did. When they finally get there and they get
Yeah.
up to V'ger and he's like V-E, and then they like show it and it was like there's clearly other letters.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, wait a second here. Let me just oh, VOY Voyager. Oh my God. That was launched 300 years ago."
So they kind of leave this mysterious thing of, like, what like changed the probe, you know?
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, so basically, like, we send out Voyager to like get information and send it back to
Right.
NASA. And then it
Yeah.
crashed on an alien planet full of like robots, and they
Right.
reprogrammed it to like discover all sorts of information,
Right. It, like,
like consume all information.
they basically help it, like, complete its mission by consuming all
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
And then it comes back as a giant cylindrical, like, pickle giant thing, and then it's like doom, doom, when it shoots all those things over the
Oh yeah, it puts all
earth.
those like
Yeah.
plasma balls above the earth,
Yeah.
and it's like they're just gonna implode the earth.
Yeah.
We gave Creator a chance to communicate. Now we will absorb all of Creator's
Yeah.
carbon life forms. What?
It's not an infestation.
We are the Creator. We created you. No, but I have to destroy carbon life form. Why? But why?
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 I want to go with her, Captain. Ah!
Yeah. Oh man. I want this.
I want this. I want this.
That's when I started laughing too, because like, ever since like Iron Man, I want
Yeah.
this.
I want
I
this.
want this. It's always such a funny recurring thing in sci-fi movies. I want this as much as you want the Enterprise, huh? I want this. Don't stop it. Don't try to stop it.
uh,
Ah.
yeah. So
She's
good.
loving me too hard. It's like ah.
Ah!
Then he goes like Super Saiyan. His hair's all like
Yeah. Yeah.
I am being assimilated.
And it feels great.
Yeah. I'm ascending.
Yeah.
I am
And with
becoming
that,
Voyager 2.
Voyager 7. Yeah, and with that, Will Decker's human adventure
It's
just
gone.
is no, at the end of the movie it says the human adventure is just beginning.
Not Deggers.
Not Decker's.
So it's
Yeah.
just like it's so funny that even in this motion picture movie, the end of this movie, it ends the same way every episode of Star Trek ends. Where they're
Yep.
like, man, that was crazy. Let's go. And they leave.
They just leave. And guess how many times V'ger's brought up again? Goose egg. Yep.
Nice. And this is why you don't send junk into space. Right there.
That was Roddenberry's goal.
Yeah. Stop polluting the galaxy. I don't care about the oceans. But yeah, I thought it was really cool that it was a Voyager and satellite. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely like probably the coolest thing. Yeah.
I like the bridge that it formed while they walked over too. I thought that was cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I just don't understand why they were inside the ship in space, open atmosphere, and they were just breathing fine.
That part was fully oxygenated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Voyager did it so they could breathe.
Yeah.
That makes
It
sense.
it understands carbon units.
Yeah, totally. I'm excited to see uniforms changed again.
Okay.
Hopefully they fix the bridge.
No, not too much. They do change
Voyager,
it, but it's
yeah,
not dramatically.
I'll hate it, I'm sure. All right, so over on the retrack review every week, Will torments me with questions.
Or
And every episode, I always forget that I have to answer. Like we finished the review, and I was like, "Oh, cool that was nice. That went good. Went pretty smooth. We got through that quick." And then was like, "All right, so for question number one," I'm like, "Ah, I always forget about the stupid questions." So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna do that to you. That's the nerd hole guarantee. Is you're gonna you're gonna be just as miserable.
nope.
All right, so number one for the Alora Award.
Yeah.
Who is your most unlikable character?
I think
Hippie
I'm gonna
Bones.
go with V'ger.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty unlikable.
I I like don't mind the whole it's a child trying to learn and doesn't know better and like it's just trying to complete its mission, but at the same time it like vaporizes planets and worlds and people and star bases and ships and it's like it's a little much.
Yeah. Well, that's because the satellite never learned the prime directive or
That's true.
Rupert's laws of robot. What are they called? The
Yeah, I know what you're talking
seven?
about. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Never learned it.
No, that's true.
NASA was like, hey, learn and send it back. And it was like, well, the only way I can learn is by consuming everything. Okay, so question number two for the Argyle Award is your most forgettable.
It's definitely Commander Sonak who dies in the transporter accident.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
It's just like you're like, oh, cool, another Vulcan who's talking to Kirk, and he's his science officer, and wow, and then he has a
Yeah.
horrific transporter accident, and it's like, see you later.
Kill me. Why even make him Vulcan if you're just gonna kill him
Right,
off?
right.
We've never seen another Vulcan in
No,
like original series history.
no,
They're like, hey,
no.
here's one. No, he's dead. I like to think that when he dematerialized back on the base, he just was a
Oh,
human.
oh, he was
My
like,
ears.
ah!
My mother will never talk to me
And
again.
then he took the phaser off of his belt, and yeah, and he's like, and then the guy's like, whatever came back didn't last
Didn't
long.
last. He just turned it all the way up. Jeez. Wow. All
Star
right.
Trek.
So, yeah. All right. So, for the Denovian Neural Parasite Award, what
Yes.
is your best alien?
I'm gonna go with the Klingons.
Yeah. That's good. That's a
I
good
think it was
answer.
good. I was happy to see them like this, and their ships, and they're still weird designs. They're still weird, but they're I like them better than
Yeah.
just mustached like bronze people.
Yeah, they look pretty good. And I like seeing their ships up close more with more detail. So that is cool. What? Chop chop. Okay, so for the data award, who's your MVP?
I think I'm going to say it, and I know this is not going to be an accepted answer by people, but I think I'm gonna do the big thing, and I'm gonna say it's Will Decker. And the
Yeah,
only reason I say that is because I think the Ilea thing and V'ger not destroying the Enterprise early on is because of him.
I
That
think
he
so.
kind of reaches, he kind of convinces Ilea the probe to not like destroy them on a couple occasions.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah,
you
I
look at
think
it,
so.
like as cool as Kirk and Spock are, like the V'ger would have just annihilated them.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do. So
And kind of the only reason that like it doesn't blow up the planet
right,
altogether is because he assimilates with
right, correct. Yes.
the computer.
So
Kirk couldn't talk this computer out. So,
no, not this one.
all right. So for your Wharf Award, what was the best action sequence?
Okay, it's definitely the guy in the EVA suit like flying away from the thing. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, okay. So not the one that's waving and doing the front
No,
flip.
no, no,
Oh,
no,
that because that was
no.
pretty.
When the starbase is like dematerializing and vaporizing, and he's like in his thing there. Yeah,
Yeah,
I enjoyed that a lot.
because I had no idea in zero G you could do like front flips and stuff. So that was cool.
No, that guy we don't. That guy's fine. He's having the time of his life.
Yeah, that guy should be fired because that's
That's
clearly an OSHA violation.
that's Isaac Clarke in his 80s when when the Enterprise is being released.
There's nothing to stomp on. All right, so for the 1701/D award, what is some sweet ship stuff?
I think the cool ship stuff again is to go back to the Klingons. I really enjoyed the model close up of their ships, and there's a
Yeah,
couple of them going like they're close to the camera and going overhead and stuff. There's a couple really cool shots there.
yeah, that is cool. I didn't notice if the bird of prey is painted on. I don't think it was.
Gosh, I don't think so, but I don't remember.
I forgot. We had that comment before that told us like when you first see it, but
Oh yeah,
I don't think it was this.
maybe not. I don't remember.
Okay, so for your Talar award, what's the cheesiest part of the movie?
I'm gonna say it's the wormhole, like the
Sequence.
the sequence of them everything being slow motion for really no good reason.
Yeah.
Because like Star Trek going forward, they go into wormholes and like this doesn't happen.
Thought you were faster in wormholes.
I mean, sort of, but yeah,
Also, it's a little cheesy that they go through a wormhole
yeah,
and then Scotty's like, "Oh, well, it's because the engines don't work that we created the wormhole." But
yeah,
then they're on the other side of the wormhole and then Spock still just shows up and finds them. It's like,
yeah.
but aren't they like didn't
No,
they launch like way far away?
Spock just fixed it, and he went a wormhole too.
Yeah. So did shooting the asteroid break up the wormhole? Is that what we're led to believe? Or were they going to hit the asteroid
They were
in
going
the
to hit the
wormhole?
asteroid.
But as soon as they shoot it, the wormhole's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
These are the questions.
That remained in the cheesiest award.
These, yeah, these are the journeys.
Yeah,
All right. So for the next generation award, what's the best? The best of the best.
I think every single time they I see it every time I've seen the movie, it's like, man, this still ends up being really good. It's when they come over the top of the whatever that is, like they go up and then it's down in is the probe. It's like that sequence of seeing it and then him wiping it and seeing Voyager. Like it's always good. It's always like, yeah, it's really
Mm.
cool that this is what it is. That it's just
Yeah.
old probe from ancient days computer stuff, you know.
It
And
just keeps like picking up technology
yeah,
throughout the years. Yeah.
I just like the fact that like the biggest threat to Earth and like all of the universe and galaxy is something that humanity made like hundreds of years ago that just ended up getting
It's pretty
caught
cool.
into something. It's like it's kind of an interesting idea because usually all the bad guys are, oh, it's Klingons are doing this or Romulans are doing this thing. It's like, well, for once, it's actually the humans are doing it to themselves, kind of. In a way, I know cyborg robot people like changed it, but still, you know.
Yeah. It's also cool because the Voyager was launched in 1977. So how cool would it have been like at the time to be seeing this
Mm.
like 2 years later and they're like, oh my God, this Voyager was launched 300 years ago.
Right.
That's a really cool like current thing, you know.
Yes.
It's like if we were to go to to a movie here like next month and it was like, you know, out in space, like the big bad guy turns out to be like one of the first Teslas they launched in
Right.
space.
Right.
Like it's cool. That's a cool
It is
concept,
a
you
cool
know.
idea. Yeah.
Very like imaginative for that time period for him to be like, oh, what if this thing landed on a planet?
And that's the really
That's
funny
cool.
thing for me is when it's like all the space programs are like Apollo 6, Apollo 8, Apollo 11, right? And they do all these
Hmm.
things. And so they launch a Voyager 1 and 2 and then the writers were like, well, they're going to keep launching Voyagers and naming them and it's like I don't think they go beyond 2 in real life. I think it's like
Yeah,
Voyager 1 and 2 and then that's it.
yeah,
Just funny.
that's pretty funny.
It's
Yeah, that's
cool.
cool. I like it.
So you've
So the
officially seen
next,
the motion picture.
yeah, I sure have. So the next one is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
The Wrath of Khan.
That, from what I hear, is going to be so good.
Yeah. We'll see
I'm
how
actually
you
excited for that one because I liked Khan. I liked that episode.
okay.
So I'm sure it's awful. I don't know what he
It'll
could
be
be mad about. He was given a planet. He was given immunity, basically.
hmm
I don't know what he could be so upset about.
Well, guess you'll have
He
to find
has he has a terrible artist with him, you know. What could go wrong?
what could possibly go wrong.
Is she, first of all, just one question before we watch that movie. Is she referenced at all in the movie?
Is she referenced in the movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, yeah. So we will see you then when we cover Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
That's right.
Videos are made possible by viewers like you. All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Captain's log, Stardate is fun. Every line a classic run. Warp speed to adventure unknown. In this universe, we're never alone. Will we find Spock in the deep black void? Will Khan's revenge be fully employed? Engage engines, let the story unfold. To boldly go where tales are told. Will we